Rexar versus
Oh, so it is going to be a Hunter coming out against a Rogue. Pretty interesting. I mean, who do you think is favored in this matchup? You talked a lot about the Rogue. Do you think it's a clear favorite? Do you think it depends on what kind of a Hunter he's playing and what kind of a Rogue he's playing, or do you think it's just across the board the Rogue has the advantage?
I think that a lot of it has to do with the kinds of matchups that are being played here. Obviously, Savjz is playing a mid-range Hunter, given by the Savannah High Main and the Scavenging Hyena. And obviously, Kungen's playing Miracle with the Gadget Auctioneer. I'm a little surprised he chooses to mulligan it here. But you notice that Savjz kept Unleash the Hounds in his opening hand. And this is sort of exactly what we were talking about. He can't be too sure what Kungen's coming into this event with. Because when he keeps that Unleash the Hounds, what it means is that he anticipates the possibility of sort of a tempo rogue coming out. And it looks like he's having trouble whether or not he wants to greet or threaten Kungen.
Kungen gives him the greet, so he goes with the greet in return. And he's just going to go with the steady shot, it looks like. What do you think about the steady shot versus playing the Scavenging Hyena or something there? Do you think that's kind of the clear move?
It's a little confusing to me. He's got Houndmaster in his hand, so he wants to be able to get value from that Houndmaster. And I don't like skipping the Hyena here, because if you skip the Hyena here and say you draw something like Animal Companion or River Crocolisk, you haven't pulled a removal spell out of your opponent's hand. Yeah. So this spell is just getting removed if he has a removal spell. And it's not like you miss the opportunity cost of it, because if you don't draw a beast here, you can just use your Hunter power this turn. But he needs to develop the Scavenging Hyena as well, so I think a slight error on turn 2.
Well, he is going to play that Scavenging Hyena now. We just see, it looks like the Earthen Farseer is just going to come out and heal himself right back up and backstab a pretty fair trade there to take down that Scavenging Hyena. But that will end the turn.
Yeah, the Earthen Ring Farseer, Savjz can't be happy about that, because deck builds like this indicate that their strength is supposed to be against Hunter.
Yeah.
So in addition to his hand being really clunky, you notice he has to play Houndmaster here on turn 4, getting no extra value from it.
Yeah, no battle cry.
He's just trying to get stuff on the board to stem damage to himself so he can extend the game to where Savannah High Main can begin making a difference.
Oh, and he's going to coin out the Azure Drake there, which is a very nice move. I mean, the backstab for that Houndmaster, not only didn't get the battle cry, now he loses it to the Azure Drake backstab. Doesn't even have to trade a minion for it. So, I mean, this is looking like a really good start here so far for
He also saves 4 points of health because he doesn't have to use the dagger for the final point of damage.
Yep.
And Kodo's looks like it's going to come out here. I agree with it. But this is, again, sort of indicative of how poor his draw is versus this particular deck, because now he's played 2 minions that he's gotten no value from. And his whole purpose, again, is just to progress the board enough to get value from his minions later on. But looking at Kungen's hand, it's going to be very difficult for Savjz to put something together here, because the question isn't whether or not he can remove this Kodo, it's how he chooses to remove it.
Now, I mean, what do you think the play is here? Do you think you go with the Blood Mage, or do you Shiv a Vis? Do you Shiv and then trade out? Like, what do you think is the best play here?
Well, having 2 minions on the board I think is optimal versus this Hunter spot, because if he has something like Unleash Buzzard, you don't want to give him extra cards. 7 points of damage on the board is more than enough pressure. The only plays I can't imagine making are using Blade Flurry or Gadget Auctioneer. But I think using Fan of Knives is totally okay. I think that just shiving his face and then eviscerating, which looks like what he's going to end up doing, I think that's totally fine as well. But again, a lot of plays to deal with it, because he's already got the spell damage out now for the Eviscerate. So playing the Blood Mage isn't necessary. I can agree with this play. I like this a lot.
Yeah, I think that it is a really nice play, honestly. So already down to 17 HP, and do you just end turn here, or do you think you attack with the dagger?
I think you could make a pretty strong argument for both. I would tend to attack because I think the damage adding up can matter a lot, but I'm okay with saving it as well. I don't have any problem with that.
Now, I mean, here, he's going to go with the Buzzard, and he's going to go with like double Unleash, probably. So going to get a lot of card draw. I mean, he could obviously wait and see. The Hunter's Mark is a very nice draw to be able to take out that Azure Drake, but I mean, do you think he has to do that?
I don't see another play being valuable. If his opponent's got something like a Sap in his hand, the Savannah High Main is actually going to lose it. So I think he has to run a slight risk here and hope that Hunter's Mark is somewhere in the next 4 cards of his deck. But he also clears the board down when he draws that Hunter's Mark. And now I think he's actually at a pretty decent position given how poor his open was.
Yeah. I mean, at what point do you start to get a little bit nervous of how low your HP is? I mean, he's sitting at 17 HP. When is the kind of the panic moment here against the Miracle Rogue?
Getting into the 12 range is always really bad because of Leroy Shadow Step is a big threat. But we see here Malagos now in Kungen's hand, and that's indicative that he's playing the Malagos Rogue deck, which we see on the right side of the screen. But more importantly, from Savjz's perspective, if he doesn't see this Malagos, he still doesn't know if his opponent's running Leroy Jenkins or Shadow Step or not.
Yeah.
So with the way that this hand's progressing, there's a good chance he may never even use that, and that he can leverage that information against Savjz in a later game as well if he manages to actually take this. Yeah,
I mean, that's very true. If they don't see it, there's nothing they can do to react to it. It's harder to prepare for it. Now, I mean, here, he has a lot of different options. I mean, do you think that you just maybe play the Flare and then get the Savannah High main down, see if you draw something different? It looks like he is going to go for that Flare. I mean, that seems like the obvious move to me. See what you draw and then probably go for the Savannah High main. I mean, you know, throwing out a deadly shot with the Blood Mage down seems really kind of scary, but he's going to go actually with the charge, take out that that Blood Mage, so no more spell power. He doesn't get the Death Battle for the card draw, using the Owl there. Now, I mean, do you think you deadly shot that SI agent, or what do you do here?
This is sort of a tricky spot. I like this play coming into this. His opponent's only got 4 cards in his hand, so he really wants to try to deny him digging further into his deck, given that his life total is going so low. He settles on Deadly Shot. I'm okay with using Kill Command as well.
Yeah.
But the thing that he's thinking about when he uses this Deadly Shot is that he's much more concerned with actually being able to kill his opponent, since he's still
wants to save the Kill Command for his face, basically, which does make sense. Just going to be able to actually trade there.
So Gadget's Zane Auctioneer kind of gives up the jig. He's very aware that he's playing some sort of Miracle Rogue at this point. But now the major issue is how you end up passing this turn, and this is a very difficult tracking.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter's Mark versus Savannah High main. I think he's looking like he wants to go with Savannah High main, but this is a tough choice, man. I mean, he already has one High main in hand. Do you think that edges him more towards the Hunter's Mark here?
I think what might edge him more towards the Hunter's Mark is the fact that he's already used one.
Yeah.
So this is the last one left in the deck. Yeah. So if you can't manage, if your opponent manages to get something like a big Edwin Van Cleef out, and you don't have a Hunter's Mark left, you actually almost have no way to deal with it, because you see he's also got one Iron Decal in his deck, and that's already been used as well.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. So he is going to decide to actually trade it out there with the Kill Command, gets the Crocodile down, and now, I mean, in Kungen's position here, you know, he has the Phantom Knives for the card draw. He could obviously do the Shiv as well, but it looks like he's going to actually Shiv the face, see what he draws here. So he does get preparation, but, I mean, what do you do to remove this here? Do you think that you go with, like, the Deadly Poison? Do you do something, do you just let it sit?
Well, I like this play a lot, and this is sort of a unique spot where attacking the face, I think, is almost acceptable. But I think attacking a Crocolisk is probably slightly better, because you want to prevent something like a Houndmaster from happening.
Yeah.
But his opponent's already used one, so something to keep in mind is that he may just want to pressure the life totals at this point. What it looks like he's counting is... yeah,
I mean, he does have Blade Flurry in hand.
Right, so Malagos Preparation Blade Flurry is a possibility next turn. That's going to be 8 damage. Malagos again, plus 5 spell power. That's a lot. The question here, I guess, is if you cycle the Phantom Knives or not, because do you want the utility of having Phantom Knives once Malagos has hit the board?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, to play the Phantom Knives, wouldn't it kind of make sense to play that first before you do the other things if you are going to play that, since it does have the card draw?
But it would make sense to do that. Typically, I think with this, the way that this hand's constructed, it's hard to come up with a play that would change what happened. But if you're going to play the Phantom Knives, I certainly think you would cycle it beforehand. And again, this tracking, again, he's almost in the exact same spot he was with the last one, but sort of for the opposite reason.
Yeah.
None of these cards are very appealing right now.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, getting higher up in the mana curve here, do you think you just go with that Kodo? Just kind of have something a little bit of a stronger minion to play there? Or do you kind of look at the utility of the Crocolisk, or just, I mean, you know, having that charge maybe as a removal or something like that, or as an activator for a second Kill Command? I mean, you know, what are the pros and cons here? Talk me through it a little bit about these different choices.
Well, I think Kodo is probably the worst pick of the 3, because you have the Savannah High in your hand. I would say that the River Crocolisk is probably the best pick, simply because you need to develop your board and hope to just pressure out your opponent, and kind of hope that they don't have anything left in their hand. But the Stone Tusk Boar is also an activator for the Hunter's Mark, which is
there goes the
what he might be hoping he had in his hand at this point. So now the jig is really up. He's very aware that he's playing Malagos Rogue, but a plus 5 point Blade Fury for 8 life is going to leave Savjz down at 3. Now not only is he facing a 4/12, but his opponent's at 22.
I mean, he has the Hunter's Mark for the easy removal. I mean, I think he was trying to figure out if he had lethal there. Obviously, he doesn't. So, I mean, he's going to have to do the removal, but it's like, how do you win from this position? Is it even possible?
But you have to hope that your opponent just actually has nothing here.
Yeah.
And I imagine he's going to be kill committing this turn in hopes that he can combo off some cards later, but he's also out of unleashes, so the Leroy isn't adding any extra damage there.
Oh, I mean, that's going to be it, right? He does have the Fan of Knives plus the hero power.
Well, Fan of Knives is only to minions, but he draws Sinister Strike
God.
instead. And that's going to be the last damage off the top of the deck. Not necessarily needed, but
I mean,
a good turn to draw.
I think he had it anyway, but well played. Kungen does take the first round, man, and he got that matchup that he wanted. We talked about, you know, the Miracle Rogue versus Hunter matchup. That was what he wanted. He got it, and he played it well. I mean,